Hey guys, welcome to another Complete Developer Raw, a live show with Will and BJ. So hey, tonight I am drinking something that a friend of ours got me for my birthday slash housewarming, uh, called Iron Smoke Straight Bourbon Whiskey. There we go. Now it's in front of there. It is a 4 grain bourbon with applewood smoked wheat, and it is really good. He knows I've been getting into the wheated whiskeys, so he kind of brought that. I told him not to bring presents or anything, but I did say, BYOB, and so he was like, "Well, I wanted to try it, and I figured I'd just leave it here. It'd be a nice housewarming birthday thing." And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to complain. I'll totally accept that.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen you turn down free whiskey or scotch or beer or wine or mead or gin or
Yeah, basically, I don't turn down free booze, is what he said.
yeah.
All right. So, speaking of my birthday, the party was a lot of fun. A little bit smaller than expected, but it was still good. We had a kind of a small crowd that got together and had a lot of fun. Got a couple other really neat things for my birthday. Um, One of which, if you follow me on Facebook, you'll have seen me trying to sell, which I was not trying to sell. I posted that I got the deluxe edition with 3 extra songs of Lindsey Sterling's second album, Shatter Me. Really excited. It's awesome. The extra songs are phenomenal. And I posted that on Facebook through Instagram, and Facebook decided that I was selling it and put it up for sale. And, it was like a day later that I'm like, no, that is not for sale. You cannot have it. No, that is mine.
I guess it could have been worse. It could have been like your picture.
That's true. That's true.
you know, you
So
never know.
the other thing, my sister sent me this. I just got it in the mail yesterday. It's really cool. Oh, there we go. It is a wall hanging bottle opener that has a mason jar to collect the uh, the bottle caps. But her thought was, she's like, well, it combines the two things you love, dogs and beer.
Nice. And I'm hoping that it's at least a quart size mason jar because I know how you pile up the bottle caps.
Uh, Not recently. I've been filling up growlers, so that's been cool.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of growlers, I bought a washer and dryer. I don't know how that has to do anything with growlers, but
I
uh,
don't know either.
it's coming in tomorrow. They're delivering it. Oh, by the way, Will doesn't know this. I was frustrated because I called this afternoon. They told me they were going to call me yesterday about when it was going to be delivered or tell me what time. And so I called this afternoon, and they're like, "Well, we haven't set up the schedule yet." I'm like, "Yeah, well, no wonder places like this are having trouble because you can't even Comcast will tell you what time they're going to be there or time range. No, it's a lie, but at least they'll tell you something. Anyways, they called me and they're supposed to show up tomorrow afternoon. I'm not going to say the company because I don't want to get in trouble for libel or whatever, but it was just frustrating. It's been a hectic week, anyways. Actually, it's been a hectic couple of months. I'm looking forward to things kind of slowing down now that I'm getting back into sort of a routine with stuff. So, what's going on with you, man?
Well, I am pretty well buried in work at the day job, and I'm also working on the book. So I think I've got like 115 pages left. I think I've got to write by the end of March. It took a little while to get all the pieces together. Get the outputs in the right format so that the editors are okay, and um, it's it takes a lot of work. I mean, there's just a lot of writing to do. Other than that, man, I don't do anything. Like
Hmm.
I'm either working with you on this, I'm working at the office, or I'm working on my book. And that's like I hadn't played a video game in like 3 weeks. I mean, I've had no downtime.
I
So
completely understand. Until my birthday, I had not played at anything on my own. I do take my Switch into the office when we go in because there's about 3 or 4 other guys that have Switches, and some of the women do too, but they don't bring theirs in. I don't know. They don't want to play with us, I guess. But we we bring him in, and then we'll go out to lunch together, eat lunch, and then sit and play. Right now we're playing Smash Brothers because that's the new thing out. So there'd be like 3 or 4 of us just sitting there in the restaurant playing. I'm sure we look like total, nerds that we are, but we have a lot of fun. It's the only gaming I've gotten to do, that and on the bus ride. So, I did take some time on my birthday because I went and got that Pro controller that I showed you guys, and the Amiibo, and so I took some time then to play a little bit at home, but that's about all I've gotten either. So the podcast, we got a lot going on with that too. Oh my goodness, there's it's like we kind of had some downtime from the podcast during the holidays, and it has just like been kicking off since then. Lot of great contacts. First off, water bottles are on the way. They are going out tomorrow, maybe. It may be Saturday before I get them out. It just sort of depends on if it's early or late afternoon when they bring my washer dryer by. I've got them all ready to go. I just got to take them over to the post office. We are changing a little bit up on the live show. You guys will see that right towards the end when you notice something missing. And now Will is scrolling down to see what's missing. It's something we talked about a week ago. So, yeah, we got some exciting stuff coming up in the next few months. We've had a few guests contact us. Gonna have some really interesting things. We've got some potential interactive challenges and giveaways coming up. So stay tuned. We got a lot of really awesome, unique stuff coming up that we're hoping helps get everybody involved with that. Looks like we got a couple of comments. So let's look at those, and then we'll get into our listener questions. So we have Glenn Miller that says, "Hello, guys." And hang on, I'm sorry. I'm looking across the screen here. And it redoes the thing when I do that. And Jonathan, I'm not even going to try. Sorry. Not to be rude, but what's going on, fellas? Love to both of you, or much love to both of you. All right. Thank you, guys. Hope y'all are doing... Whoa, what in the world?
I don't know. On mine, it says there's 4 comments, but I only see 2. So
it says, oh no, that's 4 people listening. Or
okay.
And 2 comments.
Okay. Mine just says 4 comments. So really? That's weird. That's yeah.
Yeah. If you guys just saw me trying to move the screen around so I could read it easier, I accidentally grabbed the wrong screen. I'm still getting used to this like multi-screen setup for our live shows and not like actually sitting next to Will talking to him. So, all right, getting into our first question.
Okay. So the first question is, why should I not let a customer pay for code reviews? So let's back up a little bit. A code review is where you have more than one person look over some already written code and look for problems, look for issues with the code, structural improvements, how to clean it up, that kind of stuff. And that's something you should be doing, right? As an adult, as a developer, you should be taking care of your business. However, there is a little bit of a weird area here as far as getting a customer to pay for it. What you don't want to do is put that as a line item on an invoice. There's a lot of stuff you really shouldn't be putting as a line item. This is one of those things. This is just part of coding. If you put it as a line item, you give the customer the option of going, oh, I don't want to pay for that anymore. Don't do that anymore. And they'll still blame you for the bugs. So don't make it obvious, right? Like this is just kind of part of the whole thing. It's like if you told clients that, oh, I'm compiling code and that actually took some time and you put it on billing, they would ask for you not to compile anymore. So don't start that conversation.
I was going to say it's the same thing with compiling code, or the same thing with writing unit tests, the same thing with refactoring. These are just things that you do. They're part of being a professional. They're not something that that you need to list out when you're putting the line items together. It's a part of writing code.
Yeah, I mean, like optional line items like that, if you put those on your invoice, you're also kind of marking yourself as a low value professional. Like if you are having work done on your house, there's some stuff that's going to be on line items. There's the bill of materials that's involved, and then there's labor. There's not like, oh, well, we spent this much on hammering, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
when you break it down that far, people start thinking, what are you trying to hide? What is this? Like, just don't put that there. Just be like, yeah, this was development time. Because that's
Right.
what it is. Your morning stand-ups are development time
Right. I mean,
as
like
well.
if you're getting work done, they're not going to they'll put the drywall that they use, but they won't put putting up drywall and then, covering up the nails and then like all those pieces that go with it. No, that's just part of putting it up.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And this actually came from a comment on the code reviews episode. So, which if you go to our show notes and take a look at, Will wrote back with a very in-depth, he addressed the commenters' specific questions as well. So it was a really good interaction there. Next question. What is the best way to read another programmer's code? And my first response is with lots of scotch.
Yeah, some of it
yeah.
for sure.
No, seriously, it sort of depends on the reason that you're reading the code. If it's for bug squashing or fixing something that was found, an issue that was found, I prefer to use unit tests and to go through the unit tests first and then use it.
If there are any.
Yeah, if there are any, that's very true. And then use a debugger to help find the issues. Depending on, depending on the code I'm looking at, if it's front end code, like if I'm doing Angular stuff versus .NET stuff, or anything else. Now, another thing you can do is, speaking of if there is any, use the documentation, if there is any.
Yeah, and let me just interject one thing here too, is if you start seeing that the documentation doesn't match what's actually there, that tells you stuff too, right?
Mm-hmm.
That tells you either they didn't update the docs. It also gives you a historical perspective on what it used to be, probably, because people write the docs after.
Oh, cinnamon that one.
Okay. So that's also very useful.
Yeah. Another thing you can look at is the method names, if it's named properly, because a lot of times they'll if it's written properly, the method name will tell you what it does. So if you're trying to track back, another on that too, take advantage of your IDE tools, like finding references to classes or methods. It sort of depends on the IDE you're using there, but a lot of the more beefier IDEs will give you that sort of information.
Well, the other thing you can do too is you can just comment that whole method out and then try to compile, and you can see all the places they're trying to call it. That's what we did back in the Turbo C++ days.
I hadn't thought about that, but that is an option.
If you need to learn how to go ghetto on your code, man, I can tell you all the ways.
So not that long ago, I had a coworker come up to me and he's like, "Hey, so I've been given this to update." He's like, "I've gotten to all these places, but I get to this file, and what do you think of it?" And I look, and it was supposed to be I was a web forms or a CSHTML file basically, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, that looks like Chinese. I think those characters are Chinese. And so he opened it up he opened the file up in Notepad, and it was proper. It was just for some reason in Visual Studio, that one file was being translated to Chinese.
That's not good.
So
yeah. Chinese? Did you put some of the Chinese into Google Translate and see if it made sense?
Oh, we should have done that. We didn't even think about that. No, he just copied the English from Notepad and pasted it. Like he deleted the file and pasted it back in there, and that worked.
Yeah, I was just thinking, because if it made sense once you put it in,
Yeah.
into Google, then that is spectacular if somebody pulled that off. Um,
I think it was just
yeah,
something weird with Visual Studio. It like translated it or something.
switched it to Unicode
Probably. Yeah.
probably when it wasn't, I guess.
Yeah.
And I will add another thing too. One trick I try to do when I read somebody else's code is I try to get in their headspace,
Mm-hmm.
right, and try to read the code and try to predict what's next.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like method acting, I guess, a little bit, um, because you'll start to understand how they're thinking about things and how they're approaching things, and you can actually reason about the code better than just reading it.
Yeah. So we do have a comment from Glenn. For edited code, use a tool to show only the changes, what's changed, and what replaced it.
I agree with that.
Yeah, that would be very helpful if you can have that. That's really cool.
And especially like, diff history going back a few steps. That's, not just one or two, but maybe even 5 or 6 back. Because a lot of times people check in little changes at the end before review. So like, you don't want those. You want the stuff that's down the stack a little bit.
That makes sense.
And I would like to add one other thing too. Another thing that you need to do when you read another programmer's code is try to read it with some empathy. In other words, like when you look at something and it looks like crap, instead of going, "Hey, this guy's terrible," like try to figure out what circumstances created that problem.
Mm-hmm. It's like I was reading some code earlier this week that was the very first code that the person had written when they started working at their very first job.
Yeah.
And I think my response was, this is really great academic code. I would give this person an A+ if I were their professor.
Yeah.
Not the best production code, but it's great academic code. Like they really put a lot of effort in to it. So, yeah. All right, next question.
Why do people with 10 years experience have trouble with simple functions during code interviews? Because they don't use them. I mean, like seriously, if you ask me to do a bubble sort right now, I'm going to have to think about it because all the libraries I use, they do that for you. I'm dealing with stuff at a higher level a lot. And I'm writing a book on this, by the way. So I have really strong opinions here. But a lot of the way that developers get interviewed is complete and utter crap. It's broken. It's not remotely reasonable for determining skill at anything. So, that's why if you're trying to evaluate somebody with 10 years experience, do you really want somebody that off the top of their head can tell you how to do a bubble sort and can just implement it right there? Or do you want somebody that actually knows how to use the tools that you're using to do what your business is trying to do? I mean, I'm assuming that your company is not called Acme Bubble Sorting Company Incorporated.
I'm so going to register that now.
You probably do something else other than working with Wile E. Coyote, right? And you're really just trying to kind of roadrunner the development person that you're trying to hire, right? You're just tricking them into this thing. It's like, this has nothing to do with my job capabilities.
Yeah. So I think I have one more person. All right, I'm going to butcher this, and I apologize for this. I'm going to do my best. Volodymyr, did I say that right? I hope. Says hello. So hello to him. And Glenn says amen to that. I think it was something you just recently said. So awesome. Thank you, guys. Let's see. So here's where the change is. When we started doing this, we were recording on Mondays. And so we announced the episode that was coming out that week and then the one coming out the following week. Well, when we moved recording to Thursdays, which is the days that the episodes come out, we were doing the episode that came out today and the next one. And it seems kind of silly because, let's be real, you guys are, if you're listening or watching our live feed, then you already like the show and you've probably already listened or already planned to listen to today's episode. So we're just going to cut that out altogether. That's a waste of your time. And we're just going to announce the episode coming out next week. So next week's episode is coming out on Valentine's Day, and it is called Rules for Dating My Developer. Many of us have been there. You're out on a date with someone who doesn't understand you at all. Some of us have even been in long-term relationships with people that just don't get us. Since this episode is coming out on Valentine's Day, we thought we'd have a little fun with the rules for dating my son or daughter memes with rules for dating my developer. In each one, we'll talk about ways to better understand not just other developers, but the people in your life. This is a good episode to listen to with your spouse or significant other, as a lot of these apply not only to developers. And two more shout outs before we close out. I see Joseph has joined us. Haven't seen Joseph in a while. How's it going, man? And my sister has joined us. So, hey, Lori, I announced it earlier, but I did show everybody what you sent me. It's so awesome. I really like it. I haven't found a place for it yet, but I'm totally going to have that probably in my kitchen somewhere. So, guys, that pretty much is everything we've got. We're going to hop off and do some recording. So we will talk to you guys next week.